We have a brand new sponsor on the podcast, Melrose Future Lab. Now, Future Lab is Australia's first dedicated longevity supplement range that is TGA approved and listed, Australian made and science backed. I'm not going to dive too into the weeds of all of their amazing products, but I just want to talk about one today that is their best seller, and I've been taking it every single day and have seen a noticeable difference, and that is the NAD Plus Booster. Now, this product is massively trending at the moment with Dr. David Sinclair, Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, LeBron James, Hailey Bieber, Kendall Jenner. The list goes on and on and on. And that is because it supports the most important molecule in your whole body, which is NAD, and that is responsible for cellular renewal. In a simple sense, you are born with DNA, and there's a set of instructions that make up who you are. Now, your body replicates that information based on the set of instructions, but over time, as you age, it replicates it worse, hence why you age. Now, as mentioned, the NAD Plus Booster supports the NAD in your body, which is responsible for that renewal, which makes you replicate that instructions better for longer, which results in anti-aging. When your cells are firing on all cylinders, you start to have way better mental clarity, focus, energy, and you just start to feel like yourself again. You can find the Melrose Future Lab products at your local Chemist Warehouse in the vitamin aisle, or go to melrosefuturelab.com to get more info. But without further ado, let's dive straight into the episode. Cru, you mentioned in a video, I pride myself on being an unsatisfying individual to most people. Why?
Well, because I feel like most people do not have the outcomes that I would want to have. And so if my character, if who I am as an individual can reflect something that harshly opposes that, I would say that's pretty successful in my book. And so to be unsatisfying, if you think of any successful person, I don't mean, financially successful, like real success, has impact, is fulfilled. That's the kind of person that brings ideas that make people uncomfortable. I make people uncomfortable for a living, which is really fun, because where it starts to become very, very gratifying is that is the thing that is most in alignment with what I actually want for my life. And it's the closest to who I actually am, where I feel like most people's thought process and behavior is very far from what they would actually want to see from themselves. That's where it becomes fun. And it takes a long time for that to be the case, obviously, because you don't just become confident through saying you're confident. You have to create proof for yourself, right? You have to have very strong self-respect. You have to build these things to where confidence is real. And then you can fend off the hate or the conflict or whatever else. But again, that process is not quite short by any means.
Why do you think most people don't live like that?
It's one of the hardest questions, because to a certain extent, there's almost an innate approach to that for myself. Something that I think about a lot is it's the concept of idolizing. And I think where people societally place value is on idols, right? It's famous people. It's these detached figures that we'll never know, we'll never get to talk to, sure as hell won't become, right? And it's not real. Like, that detachment isn't actually real, because people have that perspective of me, which I consistently work to dissolve, by the way, because that is ridiculous, right? Because I know where I came from, I know where I am now. But when somebody says, oh my gosh, man, I wish I could have a car like that one day. I wish I could do that for a job one day. I wish I could talk to this person. The way that they're phrasing that is already detaching themselves from achieving something like that. And I don't know if that's baked into society. I don't know if that's some, evolutionary mechanism of our brain, but I do know it's unfortunate, right? Because I've seen the very long middle part of being the individual, right? Sticking to my guns in a sense, and the conflict that creates of like, well, you kind of sit by yourself for a long time when you are that kind of way. But I've also seen the tail end of it, where now what I do for a living, the people I'm surrounded by, the opportunities that open up for me are based on that very thing that was the full isolating thing however many years ago. So Man, I don't know. I feel like I don't know is like the answer to most of the big questions.
I
right?
guess what happens when you put yourself in a state where you even the conversation around like, oh, I wish I could have that car, I wish I could have that job. What that frame of mind does is it shuts off your opportunity to fail. It shuts off your opportunity to be put in the limelight and people see you wanting to do something and then you don't achieve that thing or you struggle to achieve that thing. So it doesn't require any work off the back of saying that.
Yeah.
But if you say, I am going to have that car, or like time's just catching up, I've already got that car, time's just catching up.
Yeah.
You best get to work. And it's not fun sometimes, it's hard.
Yeah.
But you've got to do it because you've held that commitment. And I guess that's maybe why people live that way.
Yeah,
If there was no
yeah.
one in the room at all and there was no one that you had to report to or no one had to see what you were doing and you wanted that car, would you go and get that car?
It's the biggest question, right? Because successful people, they make the to-do list for them, right? In terms of seeing, oh, I ought to have that car, I ought to be that person, that's something I feel that I experienced very early on. Something I say a lot is I recognize that I'm not better than anybody else, but nobody else is better than me, right? Because there's no real difference besides decision making, right? If I see somebody that has a kind of life I want, I say, yeah, absolutely. I could absolutely have that if I'm willing to do what they did to get there. Of course, my version of being willing to do that. But in the same sense, like the only difference between the person that gets what they want and the person that doesn't is what they thought would happen before it did. That is it. I thought that these kinds of things would happen, right? Since I was really young. And I'd say, man, I wish there was a job on like the top 100 job list where you can be like, just someone that thinks a lot and shares their ideas. Well, shoot, I guess it's there. It's probably not on Google, but it's somewhere out in the world because we're doing that right now. That's ridiculous,
I think about that a bit too.
Yeah.
But also it makes so much sense because even when you think about like I guess it's just like needs in the world and where is there a place for you in this world? And if you can provide impact for someone, it's just a matter of what is someone willing to pay for that impact. Now, the impact might be in a creator's sense that's doing brand deals. It could be like an attention thing where you're going, okay, you've been able to capture attention by doing whatever that might be. A brand wants that attention. They're going to exchange money for that thing so they can get your attention. Yeah. I think when you can look at things quite logically and strip it back to first principles, a lot of the time you can actually, the things that you think are so scary and not achievable are actually really achievable. You just have these disbeliefs and these things or beliefs as a whole as you've been brought up. Like you didn't have these beliefs when you were a kid, like a little baby. You've developed them along the way. So if you've developed them along the way, then there's a way that you can undevelop those beliefs and have new ones as well. Would you think so?
I mean, absolutely. And it's almost hilarious because if you look at this like hyperfixation on being too realistic, and then it bleeds into really young people. I mean, being in like elementary and middle school, I remember hearing kids talking about, oh, they've already settled on being whatever, like insert super boring job name. And they think they're being cool because what they're doing is virtue signaling to the adults that have already given up on the dream. And they think that they're being really mature and cool by saying, oh, I want to be a whatever. And, they've already given up on all the big stuff because they're so smart and locked in and realistic.
It's a safe bet.
It's like, dude, you suck. Like if you're a 10-year-old out there saying you want to be the most boring thing ever and you're only doing it for the sake of virtue signaling to some adults that are also really boring, you suck. Don't do that. Do something cool. I still want the slide out the freaking back window. I want the trampoline floors. I want everything that I wanted when I was young. Still to this day. Nobody holds on to like, what did I want when I was a freaking little kid? And that's the most realistic thing because that's when the filter is not there.
But even when they do hold on, why does that fucking matter? It's your life.
100%.
Like it's your life, and like all the people that matter, especially as a kid, right, are probably older than you. When you're on your deathbed, they're already going to be dead. So their opinion doesn't mean shit. And you're the one that's going to be sitting in that deathbed going, fuck, I lived for people, not myself. I lived for someone else, and I lived their life, not mine.
Dude, it's literally the scariest thought possible. And I try and say it. I try and stress to people like, hey, listen, you're going to be at the end of this thing at some point, and you're going to be so upset if you keep doing this same thing. Like, if what you want in life is harshly disconnected from what you actually do, right, and you don't align the behavior and thought process and relationships and connections with what you would actually want them to be, I could not imagine. I could not imagine the pain that comes out of that moment when you're like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and I just wasted that whole thing, right? And it's like, it's the most cliche thing ever, like, oh, you know, don't waste your life because one day you're going to look back. No, actually, you're going to look back and you're going to be so pissed and you're going to be empty and you're going to think, damn, that was a wild thing to waste. You know, you can waste money, you can waste all these things, but your life, I mean, that's kind of crazy.
And that's the craziest thing to ponder on as well. But I think for me, I really want to go back and talk a bit about younger Cru, because what I've learned from researching for this episode and then also just speaking to you for the last couple of hours since we've been together, you like are quite extreme in terms of like the things that you do are quite extreme. Like you've never drank in your whole life. Am I correct in saying
Correct,
that?
yeah.
You've never drank alcohol. You've never done any drugs. You've never had any caffeine or coffee.
Yeah, no.
Like for me, it's so extreme. And I know that a lot of people don't strive to have that extremity.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's got to be something underlying from young Cru
Yeah.
that has led you into this? Like why do you think you're like this? We will get back to the episode in just 1 minute, but I need to thank our sponsors of the podcast, Switch Nutrition. More specifically, I want to talk about these 3 products that are in my hand right now and foundational health. There is so many different supplements online, different people telling you all these different things to do, but I love to strip it right back to the foundations and what are the things we need to be doing every single day to take care of that foundational health. I take these 3 products every single day without fail. Hydrate in the morning to keep me hydrated and energized for the day. The adrenal just before bed so I can sleep like a baby. And then the collagen I have in my yogurt bowls every single day. It's good to hit that protein goal, but then also your hair, skin, joints, nails. It's a game changer. So if you want to try any of these products, you can go to the link in the description or the show notes below, and that is my collections page where you can find all the products that I love and take every single day. Alternatively, you can go to switchnutrition.com.au and use the code Chris Griffin and you'll get 20% off your entire order. Once again, hit the link in the show notes or the description below or go to switchnutrition.com.au to get 20% off your entire order if you use code Chris Griffin. I'm going to shut up. Let's get back to the episode.
Man, it's a great question, and I love that I know the answer just because I think about it all the time, and I thought about it when I was young as if I was reflecting now on being young. Right. And so there's this foreshadowing of like, you know, here's what I'm going to know about current me because I care about this. Right. A lot of the extremes, right, of consistency, we'll say, something I noticed so frequently, it was so common in everybody, was people telling me they did something every day, or they're this kind of person all the time, or this is the case every single day. And then it's never true. I'm like, is there anybody that actually sticks to their word? Like, is there a true individual? Because everybody's got the values and the morals that stick along with it, and then they got something really weird that created them. And you're like, whoa, what's this disconnect? Right? Everybody always, people will like comment on my stuff and be like, oh, are you Mormon? Are you this? Are you that? Are you Muslim? Are you what? I'm like, I just think. I literally just make decisions based on what I see other people do, their outcomes with that, what I want, how I want that to play out, right? And I don't like to box myself into anything because I feel like the thing I value most is the ability to think and just take on ideas, right? What a nice luxury. And looking back on my younger self, there was such a recognition of whatever that is. Like I know what it is. Like in conversation with myself, I would just be like, oh yeah, I like that thing. Like that recognition, that self-awareness. I would see like a third person view of myself, right? I would observe how I act. I would observe my own thinking on like a second level. And it's not to virtue signal and be like, oh, I'm the chosen one or I'm super cool. But it was this hyper fixation on, why do I think the way that I do? Why does it seem like other people don't think the same way? I'd be in like kindergarten, and I remember being in the car with my grandmother one time. She picked me up from school, and I was like, we called her Nani. I was like, Nani, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I just think differently from people, and it just, I don't know, it just seems like weird. Obviously back then you don't really have the tools to explain. She's like, maybe it's like street smart versus book smart or something. I was like, yeah, maybe that's what it is, right? Because I was asking like, I don't really care about this school stuff, but I feel like there's another category of my thinking that applies more so to like life or something. I don't know. But again, just emphasizing this obsession. That's the best way that I can put it.
But there's got to be someone that's influenced you. There's got to be something. How can you be that young? I mean, unless there's just some rare breeds out there that just do question the norm from the get-go. I mean, I've spoke to some people that have said somewhat similar things, but I look at that and go, like, normally someone has been an alcoholic, hence why they don't drink.
Yep.
And normally there's people that, got addicted to caffeine and they found themselves being dependent on it just to have energy so they don't have caffeine. Yeah. Whereas you've just been like, nah, never want to try it, not interested, get it away from me sort of thing.
Man, other people's mistakes, I mean, if you want a free pass, like people are looking for handouts, my God, watch everyone else and see what happens to them. Because I've never seen somebody improve their life with alcohol. Never. And then people, of course, would tell me, oh, well, when you're older, you're going to want to drink. And I'm like, roger that. Let's see what happens. You know what I mean? And so there's a little bit of like rebellion, but not in like an FU kind of way, as just like what about your life actually is going to apply to mine? Because you're not telling me an objective truth. You're projecting by telling me when I'm 21, I'm going to drink. Oh, for sure, hands down. What do you know about me? Right? And I used to have this conversation with myself because it used to stress me out. Like for a small period of time, I'd be like, well, what's going to happen? And I was like, I was afraid of my future self in a way, which is a lot of people's state of mind, by the way. I was so afraid because I thought, what's going to change? What's going to happen? I know me right now. How could this possibly change? Like, this is rock solid, right? And what I came to realize over time, I thought, nobody defines that but me. Zero people ever define that by me. I don't care how much, gusto they've got behind what they're saying. I define that. And if I don't want to do something today, I'm pretty sure that's going to carry to tomorrow. And from now to when I'm 21, I'm probably thinking this at like 13, 14 or something. I'm like, there's going to be a today and a tomorrow every single day in between that time period. I don't have to worry about me because I know me, right? Maybe I got to worry about the unknown of other people. I don't want the unknown with myself, right?
But do you ever feel like for me, I agree with this concept. No one stands up on the Grammy when they win the Grammy and they go, thank God for alcohol that they did this for me. You know? No one does that. Yeah. So I agree with that conversation. But do you ever feel like there's aspects of the things that people are doing when they're drinking alcohol that you could be missing out on? Like for example, like, do you feel like there is benefit to drinking and socializing in that aspect in a different environment, to learn that environment and understand it, and then come up with a conclusion from your own experience that, no, this is not for me? Is there value in that for you, or do you feel like no?
Of course. There's perceived value, but not experienced value. And that's something I'm okay with. Because when you really get to the practical side of things, there's only so much time in the day. There's only so many experiences you can have. And so when I look at, the cost of each, would I rather miss out on maybe a potential like fun or creative or whatever kind of environment and connecting with other people on like a different plane? Sure. But then I would be missing out on my health, which only personally, this is just a me thing. I prioritize more than that, right? If I'm gonna go to France, I'm not trying the pastries. I don't give a damn. I literally don't care. I'm gonna look for the nearest store to go buy some beef because I want to preserve my body as best as possible. If somebody else has a different priority, I would never force my priorities on them, right? I don't care to force me on other people. I want to force their priorities on them because that's going to be the thing that's actually going to give them more fulfillment. Now, the way that I see the going out scene, like the drinking, all that kind of stuff, I'm actually a lot more charitable about that than people think. It's just, Instagram's going to cheapen every single message with 60 seconds to say it, but it's a desire to be on the same page as people. If everybody in an environment of drinking exited that at the exact same time and just did what they wanted to do, it probably wouldn't involve that, but then they would all be on the same page on the other side of it, right? Like if everybody flipped immediately and was like, I'm just gonna be the person I wanna be, man, I guarantee you a high percentage of people would not be in that environment. I wanna be on the same page as people too. I wanna belong to something, right? I want a group, I want a community, I want that whole thing, but I'm not willing to allow what I actually care about to be at the expense of that pursuit, right? I want it to be inclusive of those things that I care about the most. So, when you look at being on the same page, you can do that in other ways. I mean, we just freaking laid on the floor of this podcast and did breath work. You know what I mean? And now we're having a conversation. Did we have to drink to do that? No. Is it a bit more of like a serious, like intentional kind of thing? Sure. Is that the tone of every single situation? No. But you don't have to do that one thing to be on the same page, right? It's not the thing. It's just a thing that you can do to achieve that. And it's not my way.
Yeah. And I agree with that entirely now. But for me, I look at the periods of time when I would quote unquote send it and just party. Yeah. And I've had those phases. Yeah. So far gone from those phases now. And I'm in the same mindset of you where it's like, I would rather I'd come here and the first thing I do is I go to Whole Foods and I buy my ground beef and fill out the fridge of my Airbnb. Yeah. Like I'm in the same shoes as that.
Yeah.
I just look at the lessons that I actually learned from those times and it gives me a comparison point, which then makes not going out simple. But when I'm listening to you, I hear you, it's like it's not even a discipline thing, it's just life. It's like it's not even like it's not hard for you to say no to that. And right. Probably the people around you as well just know that you don't drink. So they're never even asking you, do you want to drink? So you're never even in the position to say no in the first place.
Yeah.
Would that be the case?
I mean, my entire family and like everybody I knew growing up definitely did and still do drink. So, and it's not like, I mean, my family is not, I guess, my kind of way in a sense, right? I mean, everybody just does that sort of thing and it's whatever, and I just don't. But you do your own thing long enough and then people start to see the value in it if it's valuable, right? And they start to latch on to these kinds of ideas. It's difficult because if we're to take the experience of sending it, let's go freaking every weekend, like going crazy. Like I understand. I mean, it's like adrenaline. It's doing this big thing. Like it makes sense. I'm not discounting the experience of it.
I don't think that experience is the thing that you learn from. For me, I think of like the social skills and that aspect. Because look, when I look back at those moments, I was escaping. And I think the reason why it's having a sober society is probably not realistic is because so many people hate their lives that they want to escape, and alcohol is a very easy form to do that. I just look at the social settings when you kind of remove this, it's like this liquid confidence that removes this little bubble for you, which kind of allows you, if you are a little bit more shy, to get out there a little bit. I found this little bit of enhanced charisma that I got from going through those phases. And it also, I just found it was powerful having a little comparison point. So I know that, yes, like it is fun in a few hours on a night out, which actually isn't fun for me anymore because I go there and I'm reminded that most people around me are escaping, and I actually feel uncomfortable being in that position, which is interesting. Yeah. But I just think it's interesting that you've never done anything, not even caffeine, and it's such an interesting thing. It's like you're going to your future self when you're younger and going, how do I want to be? Will these things help me get there? Yes or no? And you say no.
Yeah, I would say socially there's a tool bringing you to a place of that enhanced charisma and ability to communicate and be on whatever that level is. At the gym, I don't wear a belt to deadlift because I don't care to know what, my body can be paired with to lift a heavy weight. I just want to know what I can lift, right? Because I'm really my own competition. So in the sense of connecting with people, being on that second level, whatever that is, it wouldn't be attached to me. And so I would feel as if I'm losing something valuable on the tail end of that. Oh, well, why could I talk to somebody last night, but now today I'm restricted by my own self? I would rather work 10 times harder to have the enhanced charisma at the baseline of who I am than to use something unhealthy to get there. And again, I'm not saying it's like an invalid attempt, right? But also in the scheme of being an individual in the world, most people take that route, right? In my life, I'm like, I want to do things differently. And again, it's not to try and be some hero and make like the movie moment, but genuinely, I'm like, that's been done a billion freaking times.
It's boring.
You know what I mean? Like who does like the solemn road of just like not doing these things, right? And looking at it as pure logically as possible, getting to the other side of that without the influence. I mean, like super religious people obviously do that. Super influenced people do that kind of thing. But I'm like, what if I took the route of what seems right to me when everything around me wants to contradict that? And let's see what happens. And it's like, it's a testament just to individual choice. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're surrounded by people that reinforce positivity and are just like motivating you, the people that have that around them, I mean, they do it because it's like, yeah, this makes sense. I just had to learn how to be that environment for myself. Now, my family and people around me have always been supportive because, I mean, my family happens to love me and I'm incredibly grateful for that. In terms of friends, I'm incredibly selective for that very reason. But I mean, my grandfather is a great example. I mean, he's 77. He's jacked. He came to visit the other day. We were hitting Lift ATX. He was deadlifting with me. One of the most relentless people I know. He always spoke to me as if I understand what he's saying. He always shared big ideas with me. He didn't talk to me like, a child. Maybe he had like a little bit higher pitch, of course, talking to a 5-year-old, but he actually spoke to me like a human. You know what I mean? And that is something that I'm ridiculously thankful for because I would just listen to these things. I'd be like, wow, there's a lot out there. And I recognize the difference between him and most other people. Why is my grandfather look awesome and runs every day and lifts and eats well and blah, 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 and everyone else who's 70, whatever, looks like crap and is, has a cane? You think that's just the lottery? I don't think so. Maybe for me, having a role model like that is kind of a lottery, right? I mean, growing up, I had ridiculous anxiety and compulsion and depression and all these things and separation anxiety from my mom, all this great. Dude, I would cry like every day going to school. every single day. Just being in this environment, I can't tell you how much of like a trapped feeling that was, right? And all I wanted to do, I was like, Mom, I just want to homeschool. I can knock this out. Like I would get straight A's, all that shit. I just hated the environment. And my mom was like, you can't do that because that's the easy way out. Like that's not addressing what's actually going on with you, right? And it's these little things that make a big difference, right? Because it's not about school versus homeschool. It's about, can I sit with what's going on with me, right? Can I treat myself like an intelligent individual to then become one? Are the people around me going to reinforce that in myself? Those are the things that really stand out to me. Of course, it's a pretty long-winded answer to the an alcohol thing, but
why did you feel trapped at school?
Oh man, I mean, school is like, it's the perfect simulation of the world, because that's where people start out and then they go into the world. And you think it'll be different when you get much older, and it's like, no, most people are like most people in school. Right? They're not really thinking. They're just kind of doing their thing. And when the teacher says do the homework, they do the homework. Whatever, they complain. They study for the test. Maybe they don't do the homework, and then they get bad grades. And I'm like, have you ever thought about just paying attention? I hated school so much and just straight A's because it's ridiculous, right? This whole system of like, you're simulating something that ought to be like time management. Right, and taking care of yourself and being organized or whatever, and it's put into these weird like categories that nobody actually cares about. There's no personal interest built into this. There's no individual thought. There's no disagreeing with the teacher and whatever. And I mean, that was like my clearest example of, oh yeah, I feel like I'm thinking on a little bit of a different level than most people around me, including these teachers.
So you hated school, but you were a straight A student. Just like, when you're in those moments, what I'd love is you're explaining why you felt trapped at school from a now looking back at it. Are you able to go back to that moment and talk to me why you hated school?
Yeah,
is
because
it different?
Maybe
because in reflection you can say, oh, school's this and this, but when you're in that moment, you're like, Mum, I fucking hate school and I don't want to go there. Why were you thinking that? Was it bullying? Were the kids picking you on? What was the thing?
No, it was that exact detachment. I was like, the more people that are in front of you that you perceive to be different from you, the more the loneliness kind of increases. Now, it wasn't necessarily this like intellectual analysis of like, oh, here's the mechanism of, I mean, I was like crying my eyes out going to school every day. So it wasn't the most refined approach. But in the same sense, it was a fear of knowing what it was and knowing that the time till I could be out of it was too long to comprehend for the current day, right? And people would say, oh, well, in 4 years, you can graduate high school and you can just do your own thing or whatever. I'd be like, that doesn't help me right now because I'm afraid to be in that environment for what feels like the rest of my life. And I wouldn't even cheapen that. Like reflecting on it now, I wouldn't even say, oh, a few years down the line, you'll be all right. No, that's not fair. Right? And people would tell me, oh, I wish I could be back in school. Things were so much better then. I'm like, you're full of crap. That's garbage.
I honestly am struggling to I'm struggling to understand how someone so young can have this view on life that is like this. Like, how can you be crying on the way to school? And the reason you're crying, it's not because you're going to go to school and get picked on. It's because you feel like an outlier because you're thinking differently to not only the students, but the teachers. You think it's a full-blown scam and you're like a young kid. I struggle to believe, I feel like people that have that view are speaking about that view in hindsight, in reflection. You seem to be thinking about it in that moment.
The only thing I can give you in terms of that is my word. So I won't even try and like back up the argument because, how could we go back and prove that? It would be impossible. And I don't like to make statements that lack a base of integrity that's just the experience. And mind you, it wasn't refined. Like I'm saying, it was like, I couldn't have told you this, but this was that like self-language, right? And that's one of the hardest things. We have the ideas, we have the intention of what we think. The communication of it becomes very, very difficult. So I couldn't look a teacher in the face and be like, hey, see the organization of how this whole thing is working, it's just not for me. I can't really see myself being here for 4 more years. This is ridiculous. I'm going to head out. It's like, I'm freaking out, having a panic attack. I'm in the freaking like counselor's office. She's saying some bull crap to me that doesn't make sense. I'm like, this is crazy, and it would take like the beginning of the school year was just, I couldn't imagine being like feeling any worse than that. Like my summer was great. I was like, yes, let's go. And then slowly but surely the countdown to that day would come back, right? If I stayed in school full time, I would have been used to the environment. I could exist fine. I would like make jokes all the time doing my thing, but restart that process, take me out of the environment and then put me back in. I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. I can't.
It's so interesting. I have no doubt that's what you were feeling. And that's a fascinating concept where it's you feel something, but you can't articulate it just yet. And that's probably why so many people love your content too, because you're being able to articulate what's in their brain in a way that they don't know how to. They're feeling something, but when someone asks them how they're feeling, they go, I can't explain it. And then your face pops up and it goes, that's how I'm feeling. That's it. And I think we have similarities in our contents where when we're speaking like that, people feel it. And the reason is because we're describing how they're feeling in a way that's cohesive and delivered to a T. But then what's also interesting about that is you're saying like as a kid, you didn't really know how to explain it. And it got me thinking about life as a whole, right? And as we grow, we experience more, we learn more, we get a better understanding at being able to deliver how we're feeling. And that's why like maybe as a baby, you just cry because you don't actually know how to explain anything.
Yeah.
And so that's it. And then you learn some words and that's like a little bit more of articulation, understanding of what you're actually feeling and thinking.
Yep.
And then you progress down the line. And then maybe you go through some like real lows and they make you look within again and they make you think about like, and like get down to those 3rd level whys and like why you're actually feeling and thinking the way you're thinking. And then you kind of develop this thing and you grow as a person until you can get to a state, and this is, call it emotional intelligence, but where you can actually articulate what you're thinking.
Man, and I would still call it elementary because think of how hard you and I work to communicate a certain idea and how many people would openly and aggressively and viciously disagree. And I don't think it's actually disagreeing in terms of intention. It's disagreeing in terms of the communication of it, right? Because when I say, my video that went big, I'm like, I don't do this, I don't do that. I created this in defense of myself. I'm like, man, I do all these things that everyone thinks are lame. Yeah, it is lame. Like, I don't care, right? I'm going to do them because the people that think it's lame, I don't want to be like them. I'm defending me. And 40,000 people that commented are like, you suck. And I'm like, do they know me? No. Have they talked to me? No. Do they know the pure intention of where this video came from? No. Do I even know what they're saying? Maybe not.
But then for me at least, I have to recognize that like some people, like that we all have this little differences about us, and some people have desires to do things that are different than others.
Yeah.
And I look at some of your content and some people that are hating, fair play. Not everyone wants to live like you. It's like Hormozy wants to work all day, every day, and that's what he thinks is fun.
Yeah.
That's what gets him excited. Whereas a lot of people aren't that extreme. And I think people have a lot of extremities in their life. Some are more extreme than others. I guess a lot of the people that are voicing it though and projecting the hate to you is probably a reflection of them, right? And that's some inner work that they need to get done. I don't expect everyone to agree with you, but I wish that everyone could respect your view in a sense.
And that's all it is to me. Like I said, I do not want, I mean, if everybody literally did what I did, I mean, I don't think that would be that cool. You know, I mean, it'd be kind of weird. I don't want people to do the thing, nor do I want people to focus on the things in the message, right? Because I'm just bringing up things that I happen to have not done, which are things that a lot of people do. And it's kind of like this emotional experience. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't whatever, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, the thing literally doesn't matter. It's the principle behind the thing. And that I don't want to be like the people that would judge me for not doing these things. The things literally don't matter, right? And when I'm working with people, like the actual people that I coach, I'm like, I know you want to improve your fitness. That literally doesn't matter. We'll find you a great workout plan on Google in 4 seconds, right? I want to help you change the mentality of you so that the way you approach every single thing has the consistency or the discipline or the creativity or whatever you're looking for in terms of what you want to reinforce in you. That's what's actually going to help people achieve something. And so it's hard because like social media is not cut out to just be like, hey, let's talk about the principle of this thing, but I got to bring it up in a way that it's really going to like hit close to home, but then don't focus on the thing that's hitting close to home. Focus on the principle of what I'm talking about. It's so hard.
But in your context though, it's hitting home, but the reason it ruffs a bit of feathers is because it's so confronting to them because they know what they're doing is not good for them. And the thought of changing is a really hard thing to do. And when you go and look them dead in the eyes in the video, dead straight, and you do not look away, right? And you're basically telling them how all the things that they are doing is actually pretty shit. Like fundamentally, it's pretty shit. Like you mentioned earlier about you're not better than anyone else, right. I would A, argue that, and B, I would say let's define better, because fundamentally, if you look at some of the things that people are doing, they are degenerative, I'm not even going to try to say that word.
I hear you.
Acts, and they are not better. And I would think that when you make a video and it's very direct, like you're poking these places in them that are very confronting, and it results in them going, I can either hate this and keep scrolling and get on with my day and require no extra additional work, or I can look at this and go, oh, he's actually right. And then look at this massive mountain that I've got to climb to overcome the shit that I put myself in. Yeah. That is scary. I'm just going to shit talk, move on.
Yeah, and I don't want to be like full reductionist by saying like, oh, I'm not better than anyone else. No one's better than me. It depends on the thing. So if I can bench press 315 and someone can do 365, they're better than me at bench press. Easy, right? What I'm talking about in nobody being better is on an innate level, right? I don't think that I have a like a God-given better whatever, than anybody else. And I don't think anybody has that over me. Maybe someone's got like bigger legs and can just squat more right out the box, but that's a thing. I'm more talking about, hey, aligning what you do, how you think with what you want. And it's so hard to explain these things because you just asked me that and then I gave you an answer that makes a little bit more sense. But in a 60-second clip on Instagram, there's not the opportunity for that. And that's where it becomes really hard. Yeah.
And it was actually really interesting. I was speaking to someone on the phone today and she mentioned about like, sometimes you just got to step out, like unzip your muscle suit and just step out of that and just and actually think without like your body, like just your soul and like, and just think with that thing. Because when you strip it back, like we are just that, right? And so take away your big calves, take away your ability to squat more, like male, female, whatever it might be. Like we all have the mind, we all have the ability to make decisions. And we all have the ability to reprogram that, I think, over time too.
Yeah, and people, I mean, even still, people get so caught up in like the fact that I'm running. And people ask me every day, how far are you running? What shoes do you wear? Blah, blah, blah. I don't answer any of them because I'm saying you are missing the point. It does not matter. It's a minimum of a mile. There you go. If you heard the podcast, now you know. But it doesn't matter how far I'm running. It only matters that running every day, no matter what, is a reinforcement of the character I want to build within myself, right? It's not a testament to being a marathoner. It's a testament to being a consistent person in everything I do, right? I want that to be a reflection of me. And that's it. It's not like if I was training for a marathon, running 2 miles every morning would be stupid. That's dumb. I should be running like 15 miles on Thursday and then maybe like 6 on Sunday. And then, there would be programming about the running. I'm not a runner. I'm like much more a weightlifter and CrossFit and gymnastics, all that kind of stuff. Again, people are so caught up in the thing. I'm like, look past the thing, please. Because I want you to see the principle of what I'm doing here. And again, it's really hard to communicate that. And it even comes to a fault. Because if somebody says, hey, man, how can I get better sleep? Surely there are things that you can do to improve that on a practical level. But immediately I go, well, what do you think of yourself? Do you listen to yourself when you tell yourself to do something? And it immediately becomes like conceptual for me. So I'm trying to like work on dialing it back, maybe given some of the practical things because I implement them. You know what I mean? But that's like the give and take of this kind of thing for me.
You're kind of thinking, bro, I understand you're not getting much sleep. There's much deeper than that. There's so much more. Like there's way more things we should like tackle first.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this thing where you're committing every single day, and it's not just the running. We've established that.
Yep.
There's much more.
Yep.
And I would probably say, with only knowing you, meeting you today, that there are so many things in your life where you're so sure of trying to hold those commitments to yourself. I get in this bit of a state when I'm training, or not only just training, doing anything, ice bath, working, whatever it might be, where once I've committed for a good period of time, and the reason I'm committing is to hold those commitments to myself, I get in this cycle where I might be in so much pain, and I might have just done a Murph workout and I've got to do 3 dead hangs at the end of my workout for a minute. And I know that like my hands are ripping and burning, like even just trying to do one of them for 1 minute. And I get in my head about like, okay, maybe I'll just finish the second one. And then I remember I'm like finishing the second one. I'm like, oh, I'm done. And then I go, if I pick up my towel and my phone and I leave the gym right now, I'm letting the demons in. I can't not finish this third dead hang.
Yeah.
And I get in this thing where I go, is this positive or is this negative? Is this a slippery slope that just gets worse and worse and worse? Because I've noticed it get worse and worse and worse. And I'm not telling anyone about this. It's just a game against me. Yep. It's like if I don't get in that ice bath as soon as my alarm goes up and within the first 5 minutes, I'm going to have let myself down. And no one knows that I've done this the last 4 weeks straight without posting a single thing. But like I do. And I wonder if being this disciplined actually just puts more pressure on ourselves and makes life harder.
I don't think life is supposed to be easy, and not just in like a cool like Instagram reel kind of way, in the sense that the things that are most real that we experience in our lives, like someone passing away, like maybe ourselves about to pass away, like something really tragic happening, like an unexplainable situation. The foundation of that is a very harsh acceptance. And most people never give themselves a consistent enough opportunity to accept something harsh. That is my experience with the ice bath every day and the wake up every day and the run every day and the whatever. Surely, again, it's not about the thing, right? But it's an opportunity to where I hate the ice bath so much. Like, I really just do. It sucks. But that's what it's like to be a human being. the further we go in relieving ourselves of any kind of harsh nature, the further we get from being a real human being. You don't have to do anything anymore. You don't have to do anything, and that's ridiculous because it's stripping us of what we are actually made of. Like, how did we get here? It wasn't by like sitting on a couch and letting things go by. There's like, oh my God, I don't feel well and I have to run away from this bear or something. I don't know. That's what it's like to be a human. Not like, oh, let me go order DoorDash and just not have to feel anything anymore. That's not a human being.
Yeah, and I think what the thing about the ice bath as an example or whatever it might be is it's putting yourself through more hard so then the hard becomes easier. I talk about it all the time, but the reason I keep bringing it up is because it's so important to understand that the shit you go through is the best fucking thing you can possibly go through because that is what is the thing that allows you to feel great.
Yep.
Like it's the only thing. Like the video I posted last week running in Santa Monica, extremely euphoric feeling so high on life, emotionally running, just hit me out of the blue because I was running in this beautiful beach with the sun out.
Yeah.
And I'd known how much shit that I'd been through to get there. Yeah. If I had no comparison point of how shit and how low it was, I wouldn't be able to feel that euphoric feeling. And that's why I love when people go through shit because then I can look at them and go, fuck yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You are going to feel the most amazing things because of that shit.
Yeah.
And I get so excited for them. And when you can switch your mind that shit is actually good because it's what allows you to feel the highest of highs, you can push through that shit and you're more willing to bear that shit.
Yeah.
And that's where the power comes, I think. You become, and as Goggins says, callous in your mind.
Yeah.
I love that concept. And looping it back to the ice bath for me is one of those little things that is hard to give you that confidence for the rest of the day that you can go through other shit that's hard.
100%. I see it as a pure tolerance kind of thing. And that's the best way that I can put it simply. Because it's a very emotional experience. I mean, there's no getting past that, right? Like every day there's this wall. Every day I wake up and I'm like, here I am in this thing again, right? And every night before I go to sleep, I'm like, man, I'm really close to that thing again. And you go towards this and you get through it somehow, right? This morning, there I was, fists closed, like on my legs, like freezing and breathing and pretending like I'm not. I'm out there, I'm like, oh yeah, it's so cold, and like trying to be sarcastic, and maybe some days I'm serious, and maybe some days it's easier, some days I want to friggin' die. And somehow you just focus on that one day and then you get through it. And then a year later, you've experienced this thing so many different times and it's still not easier. And people would see that as the biggest letdown. Oh my gosh, it didn't get easier? No, because I'm doing something that is actually geared towards my humanity rather than this weird, like bastardized human version of not having to do anything difficult, right? And when we look at the tolerance aspect, we could see this in the gym. Like, how do you go from going into the gym the first day and you can't deadlift 135 or whatever that is in kilos, and then, a couple of years later, that's not even the warm-up. That's the easiest thing you could ever think of. You could do that literally while you're asleep. Well, you have to continuously lift weights that make you feel like you're weak so that you can be strong. And you do that every day. Like, the strongest person in the world still lifts weights that makes them feel completely weak. You know what I mean? But we never do that mentally. We never put ourselves through those things emotionally. We just wait for life to serve them up, and then your life sucks because of it, and then you freak out and the whole thing falls apart. What if we took the approach of this acceptance, this emotional experience, going through difficult things, attaching that to just the permanence of the existence? Man, I've gotten to the point, I'm like, 5 a.m. comes along and the ice bath comes along and the run comes along. This is no longer a streak. I mean, I put the number on there just because it's fun for Instagram or whatever. But it's not the streak, man. That is life now. And that's a really hard place to get to because even in doing it, I'd be like, man, when do you get to the day where kind of just like, you're kind of just the guy that runs and it's like totally fine? I mean, you know, Goggins is the man of all this kind of stuff, and he doesn't have fun doing any bit of that stuff. Sure, he has fun doing other things, but you know, again, it's this idolizing kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, you know, he's the guy, he's the disciplined dude. He feels exactly the same as I feel. I feel exactly the same as, you know, whoever the heck else that has a hard time waking up early in the morning. We all feel that. Right? We've been able to overcome it maybe more times in a row. There's a higher tolerance to it.
I would argue that you'd probably have more demons, but you're more fulfilled.
Like in terms of the demons, right? Like what does that refer to in your eyes?
For me, it refers to the hard talk that you say to yourself, the self-talk, which, as I said earlier, is it positive or is it negative? I'm not too sure. But what I will say is it makes things harder. Like there are people out there that can clock off their 9-to-5 job and not think about that after 5 o'clock. And for me, I look at that and there actually is a level of peace in that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be lying if I didn't envy that sometimes, where I go, fuck, I wish I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could switch off. Because when my head hits the pillow and it's just racing and I can't stop thinking, and I'll do a meditation that helps with overthinking and it doesn't stop the fact that I'm overthinking and I can't sleep. And all I'm thinking about is all the things maybe that I haven't done, all the things that I've got to do, how busy tomorrow is going to be. And all I wish I could do is just switch off. I envy the people that can do that sometimes. I go, that's awesome. I really wish I could do that. And so I often wonder that, but then do I go, am I more fulfilled than them? I would say that I feel fulfilled in the things because I'm striving towards things that are making an impact. I'm doing things that are aligned with what I truly want to do. All the things I'm thinking about, they might not be things I don't want to do. They're green light tasks, but I still can't shut my mind off. And I do envy the people that can do that. So I do wonder is when we hold these streaks to ourselves, we build these little things in our mind that are positive. Are they all positive?
Man, I can't stop smiling when I hear somebody going through the list of how their mind is just racing and can't stop overthinking. I'm like, let's go.
Let's go.
I love it. Like I'm so excited for you, genuinely, that's the case, because most people will never have their mind even turn on. You know what I mean? I truly think, and I'm not even trying to be like, you know, clip that kind of thing, but like, I think that's the best thing you could have. Like, that's real. You know what I mean? That's what like being the human is. You know, I don't know where that comes into play in like that evolutionary standpoint, but that seems real to me.
Yeah, and it's cool to hear that, and I do understand that, and I do feel that too.
Yeah.
And the way you develop a enjoyment of that and excitement of that is by going through more of it. I think because you know what it is this coming back down to this good and bad thing is the reason you get excited about that is because on the other side of a low is a high, and you go through more of those, you get to feel the euphoric feelings. And also when Goggins says callous the mind, it just strengthens you. And so when you go through more lows, they just become funny because it actually doesn't really phase you. And I think when you're saying you get excited about that, I think it's more about this concept of developing the character that you are. And that is the quickest way to do that, is by going through those times.
Yeah. I wanna touch back on the demons thing, because it kind of connected something for me, in that it seems like what you're explaining is the same thing that I'm talking about, as when you recognize that the way you carried something out in your own life, like this dead hang thing, right? The way you carried it out is not in alignment with your potential or what you would have wanted to see yourself do, if that makes sense, right? So it's like misaligned. I think I think what makes it demons versus not is whether you recognize that, right? Because a lot of
What do you
people,
mean by that? The disaligned part?
as in, like, you want to see yourself do that third rep, right? You're not going to grab the towel and leave until you do the third rep. If you didn't do the third rep, right, you would see that there's a difference between what you wanted from yourself and what actually happened, right? I would say that's what the demons are, right? It's a, dang, I didn't fulfill what I could have done, right? I didn't fulfill the potential. I think most people are doing that, but demons versus, oh, it's just somebody that's kind of going about their life, doesn't really care about that thing, is whether they actually recognize that. So like for us, it would be the end of the world. Oh my God, I didn't do what I could have. That's ridiculous. That's insane. How did I not do that? Why would I not do that? That's super disappointing for somebody that doesn't recognize what their potential is. Maybe it would just be a passive life.
But you know what happens though is it's one of those things where when you recognize it, you know that if you don't do it there, that's going to show up in other areas of your life too. And so this is the thing where it's like, I'm going to let the demons in because you don't do that dead hang. And the thing is about the dead hang, and the reason I'm using that example is because it literally happened at the gym a couple of hours ago.
Yeah.
Where I was so sore. I did a Murph workout, which is I did 30 rounds, I did 150 pull-ups, and my hands were really sore, the grip. And to do 3 1-minute hangs was quite challenging. And I remember after the first one, I'm thinking, there is no way I can do 2 more. I'm struggling to do 20 seconds of the first one, let alone the last 3. But then I get to the third one, and yes, it hurts. But all I'm thinking is, I can hold. If someone said that they'll give me $1 million, this is some self-talk to hype you up,
bro.
Someone said they'll
already.
give me $1 million to stick this out for another 40 seconds. Would I do it? And could I do it? Yes.
Yeah.
I most definitely could. No one's gonna die. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then when I have that thought, I'm hanging there. Next minute I look down, there's 20 seconds to go. If someone offered me $1 million to stick this out another 20 seconds, could I do it? Of course I fucking could. Next minute, it's done. The demon's not let in. I feel good. I leave that gym and I go, okay, my plan was to do this.
Yeah.
I did this. I feel good about myself. And I think that's really cool. I think it's those commitments holding to yourself. I want to play this video that you posted, and I think it ties in really perfectly to this concept.
Yeah.
Because you spoke about this, and it's about these. I like to think it's about the showing up for you, and I really loved this one. So let's watch it.
Let's go.
You listen when your boss tells you to do something, but you couldn't care less when you tell yourself to do something. Why do you have an alarm set to get to work on time, but there's no alarm to show up for yourself on time? There's obvious consequences when you don't do what you're supposed to at your job. But how do you not see the consequences of poor self-respect? Tell yourself to do things and do them. And listen because you said so. Nobody else. That is the key to overcoming yourself.
Dang, there it is.
Oh, I just love that. I think that is so powerful. Like when your boss tells you you need to be there at 9 o'clock or you're fired, you get there. But when you set an alarm the night before and you need to wake up at 5 a.m. and the reason you're waking up at 5 a.m. is because you need to go on an ice bath and you're going on a run and it's for you, not anyone else, you press snooze.
Yep.
It is not that hard. You would do it for your boss. Why would you not do it for you?
Man, and that's, I think, truly remembering the purpose behind why you're doing something. It sounds like the simplest thing ever and is the most important thing ever, right? And we talk about the ability to hang for that 40 seconds and then that 20 seconds. If $1 million is right in front of your face, that purpose is obvious. $1 million? Are you kidding me? I use the exact same example when somebody says, I want to wake up early, and I just can't do it. I say, I bet you if I offered you $1 million, within 5 seconds of that alarm tomorrow, you would wake up because it'd be right in front of your face, right? I hold my purpose behind all of these practices as close as $1 million, right? Because I feel the same things, right? The resistance is there. I don't want to get in the ice bath. I don't want to run. This hurts. I'm sore. I'm tired. The list goes on, but the purpose is right there and it never leaves. The purpose never, ever leaves, right? And so that's built into how I do things. It's like people think that their pursuit of a thing only pertains to the thing, right? It doesn't pertain to how you approach school or your job or your business or whatever. Again, it should be a character. It should be a characteristic of you, right? And then you can apply that to absolutely everything. And where that video came from, it was a conversation with one of my past clients. And he said, I just don't have that ability to like wake up early in the morning. I said, it's not a problem with your ability. It's a problem with your willingness. You're telling me you can't? That's ridiculous. And we were going over his wake up schedule, which like the first part of your day is just wildly important. I mean, there's so much emotion and like who you are built into the first moments of your day. And I said, all right, so like what does the morning look like? He's like, well, I wake up maybe 7th or 8th alarm. I'm like, okay. What's like the 8th alarm? He's like, well, that's when I have to get up. That's kind of the final, like I have to. And I said, well, what identifies what you have to? Like, what identifies you needing to wake up? He said, well, so I can get to work on time. I said, that's crazy because the first moment of every day of your life belongs to somebody else. That's a problem. There should be nothing happening for somebody else until something happens for you. And that's not a selfishness thing, right? If you're going to show up the best for other people, for your family, for your job, for your relationships, your friends, whatever, you better show up for you first, right? That is the responsibility of being a person. That is like an unlock right there. Make the beginning of your day belong to you. Your freaking boss has his own. That is like, if I can just freaking drill that into people's minds, right? Like that's why I love what I do, because I'm not doing a little program like 10 steps, whatever with somebody. When I'm working with somebody, I'm like, tell me why you do things. Like I want to know what you think. Like I'm not telling you some formula. I'm not telling you like a quick fix. Like, what do you think? Why do you do this? Why? People stop asking why, and it's crazy. It's so crazy.
Yeah, the whys is so powerful.
So powerful.
Because when you ask why, you actually get to the real questions, so then you can get the right answers.
Yeah.
Like the quality in which you live your life really does come down to the quality of the questions that you're asking yourself. But a lot of the time, the questions that are quality don't come up straight away. They're answers from questions that you've answered. And this is why I'm talking about these third level whys, because you say, okay, why do you not get up? Okay, because why do I get up? Okay, because I need to get to work on time. Why do you need to get to work on time? So I don't get fired. Why do you want to get fired? Why don't you want to get fired? Because I need money. Why do you need money? To keep a roof over my head and to look after my family. And like so you're actually getting up for the money. And then you start to ask better questions. And that's just an example. But I think too many people get asked why, they answer that question and they think that is the answer. When in reality, for the most part, it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. And I'd like to get your perspective on this too. But in my mind, I think this, varies heavily based on culture and, where you grow up in the world. I tend to think it's more common than maybe I perceived, or maybe it seems, that everybody regarding a lot of like the drinking kind of things, like when you're growing up, I feel like there's a pretty distinct, like, why do people do this? Like, what's like an adult drink? You know what I mean? You get told these little things and it's like, what? Why is that? And then somewhere along the line, it just kind of like, you don't keep asking.
I would say that people don't question that because it's just the norm.
You think so?
Yeah, maybe where you're from is different because Australia, it's just a norm. And it's going like, you're not underage drinking? Like, what?
Like how young though? Like genuinely. I mean, because
I don't know, like 14, 15, 16.
I mean like young.
Younger than that.
Like 6, 7, 8 kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's a bit ridiculous. I mean, I guess as a kid you would question it.
Yeah.
I think I would question it. I remember like thinking, oh, I'm never going to drink and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't last long. And I remember like, but I mean, I think each to their own, but I think the first thing is just recognizing it.
Uh-huh.
I hate when someone says they do something and I ask them why they do it and they don't have an answer.
Bro.
And that's most people. They go through life and they don't know why they're doing things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can tell me X, Y, and Z as to why you're doing something, I can then look at you and go, okay, I respect that because you actually have an input and your thoughts are your reality. At least you can explain that for me.
Man, 1,000,000%.
But if you go, and then that's where the respect can come in.
Yes.
Whereas if you're just walking around like a headless chook and you're doing things, not knowing why you're doing them, I think that's where the problem comes. And I think being self-aware, as people say, is the first step.
Yeah. And that's the only picture I'm trying to paint with like the being very young, having these whys, but then think of how quickly they dissolve. That seems problematic to me. Not just in like the drinking thing. That's obviously just like an example.
But I also think that you get exposed to certain things, and this is why environment's so important, right?
Yeah.
But I understand everyone that's whatever they're going through in their life right now, the way their life is, I understand. Because if you can look, you don't even have to look that deep to figure out why they are who they are.
Yeah.
You look at it and go, okay, look at your friend group. Everyone else is doing the same thing. Of course you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then you look at the next level and you go, okay, your work, you go into that office every day. What is everyone else doing in that office? When you go to the cafe and you say, how's your day going? You're like, oh, it's all right. I'm keen for 5 p.m. And that's what they say. So they're already looking forward to leaving the thing that they're doing all day. They're spending more time doing this than anything else. Yet the main thing they're excited for is to leave that thing. Of course they are in the spot that they're in. And I think if you can just understand that and go, yeah, okay, I understand. I hope you can feel more fulfilled with what you're doing. I hope you can get to that level. But at the same time, I understand why you're doing that.
100%. I mean, I genuinely couldn't agree more. And it's not just to agree. Like, I am very understanding. I just hate to see it for some people who don't fulfill, right? I mean, we would both see eye to eye on that completely. I mean, going back on like the me being young kind of thing, it was just like I wasn't okay with not an answer. Like you're saying, when people do things and they don't have an answer for it, I think, this is wild. What are you talking about? Or like, why can't I do that? Oh, you wouldn't understand. I don't know if you remember being told that when you were young, but I'm like, isn't that a slap to the face, right?
Yeah. And I guess like I'm thinking that now, but back then I wasn't. And I think the position you were in is quite a unique one where you're thinking like that at quite a young age. Because for me, I'm going, the only reason I'm actually coming up with these hypotheses is because I have lived certain things and I've thought, okay, that's not worked. That's weird. And I've questioned the norm a bit more. And I've got some results that have actually been positive for me in my life by going against the norm. So then it's that analogy of when like the ant steps out of the circle and you can never trap it again. Like it makes sense. You go against the grain, get some success, gives you confidence that going against the grain is actually a good thing. So then you start to question the norm. Yeah. You mentioned earlier about how the $1 million thing is like you'll jump out of bed, you hold your why that close to that as well. What is that for you? Like what is the why for you?
Yeah, well, in a lot of cases, I mean, when we talk about the consistency-based things, I mean, the ice bath, the running, all that, the why is, oh, this is a reinforcement, a direct reinforcement of that person that I want to be. If you ask anybody who they look up to the most, that person is going to have traits of reliability, right? Because we all want this figure that always shows up, right? We can't have a perfect figure, but we want someone that's always there. And that's someone that I want to be for myself, right? And so when I'm facing oh my God, I do not want to get into this ice bath, it's a very fast turnaround time. And this is only through repetition that the why shows itself. I'm like, I don't want to do this thing. I'm like, yep, that's the thing.
Good.
Right? right? Didn't wanna, did. That's what I always do on my my little Instagram story. Didn't wanna, period, did, period. Right? Because that's the case every time. You know, I don't want to get in the water. Like, more so than the run, which the run is like more of what I'm known for. The ice bath, I mean, it's like, 600 days or so in a row. And that one for me is just like, man, it's the first thing and it's the worst thing.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, like, how do you hold, like, for me, I look at a why like that, and I feel like it doesn't hold this weight that is like, I'm going to jump out of bed and do it. Like a broke person getting $1 million would do, right?
Yeah.
Like, for me, I look at, like, there's other things that I do for, like, little things like that. For little things like that, I look at how I'm going to feel after doing it. Or, so, like, how am I going to feel after I get out of the ice bath and go for a run? Or how am I going to feel if I press snooze and sleep through that whole time and then get up and don't do the ice bath or the run? How am I going to feel? And I, like, compare those. And that, like, that's all going on in my mind at 5 a.m. in the morning when it's dark and cold and winter and you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And, like, no one's watching. And that's what's going on in my mind. I go, okay, I would much prefer to do that. And then that gives me that drive to get out of bed. But, like, in the bigger things, the bigger picture stuff where I'm really getting tested, like, I remind myself of, like, the actual why, which is like the things I'm striving towards and all the things that I'm trying to do and the impact I'm trying to make. And I remind myself of those things. Is there a bigger why that helps you get through maybe big challenges?
At first, I would say that I'm almost glad that, like, my explanation of it doesn't work for you, because it ought to not. You know what I mean? Because it's mine. I'm not saying that like, oh, it's mine, but it just, that's a me thing, and I'm okay when I draw a conclusion from a me thing, because I'm just explaining my experience with it. And I wouldn't expect that to, like, unlock something for you, because, again, it's like aligning what you do, how you carry things out, with what do you actually care about. You know what I mean? Like, when people don't care to do ice baths and stuff, I'm not, like, working with folks to be like, well, we're going to have to implement the ice bath at 5 a.m. every day. I want them to implement what's going to build whatever that is for them. Like, the bigger why, I mean, it's so difficult, because if you asked me kind of a parallel question of, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what's your 10-year goal? I'd be like, no idea. Because the way that I see it, if I'm taking advantage of today to the fullest extent every single day, then 10 years is locked in. We're good to go.
Yeah, I love that too. And I definitely, those 5-10 year things as well, I don't really resonate with them either.
Yeah, it's like, what about tomorrow?
I kind of like the, like, play matches, win matches, look 90 days ahead and just keep progressing forward through that. But also the thing is that's crazy about the 5 and 10 year goals is I think we restrict ourselves too much with those goals and they stop us.
Yes.
And I think what happens with those things is that goes in your mind and you signal to yourself, I got 5-10 years to do that. I'm chilling. But actually, if you don't have those goals a lot of the time, or maybe you do set them, but you still work really hard, right? You get 2 years down the line and you've achieved what you would achieve in 10 years' time, and and more than that, and you go, I've achieved more. I'm never where I ever thought I could ever be, and this is only 2 years. I'm not setting that 10-year goal. God knows where I'm going to be.
Dude.
Yeah. And I think having those big goals are important in terms of, like, the life you want to live. I think that's the thing. It's not like the Ferrari or all of this. It's like the actual life you want to live. And the car might be a part of that life and all of that. And having that goal is really important. I think it's so you can have something that you're shooting towards.
Yeah. Dude, I couldn't agree more. Like, genuinely, that's always the second half of what I say, is like exactly what you said. I mean, you can't make the assumption that, oh, here's where I want to be. that's going to, you're putting a ceiling on yourself.
And you're boxing yourself in a bit in the
Yes.
sense that you don't feel like you can do anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I literally always say, if I were to make a 5 or 10 year goal right now, undeniably that would be limiting myself below what's actually going to happen. Like you said, I mean, the 2-year thing, that's literally my situation and what I do now. I'd have been like, dude, if I'm doing this 10 years down the line, this would be awesome. 2 years, you know what I mean? You never know.
Or one video.
One video, yeah, I guess so. After a friggin' crap ton of them, but heck yeah.
Yeah. After a crap ton, but and I guess
Yeah.
it's just like and I guess that whole analogy is that like that picking at the axe, picking at the gold, and you don't know when it's going to be, and for your case, it's 600 videos, and then one of them goes, but then everyone just sees that one.
Man, yeah.
Because
like,
that is the thing that blew the social media up.
yeah.
But it's all the part of the iceberg that's below the water that actually makes that video even possible in the first place.
Man, I did a video a few days ago, and I said, you know, everybody wants to know the big moment, or the big day where things changed. And the biggest day was Tuesday 3 years ago, a day that I couldn't recall to save my life, right? And it's because Tuesday probably didn't have like a big notable thing happen, but I did the same things, right? I stuck to the plan, I kept the promises, etc. And that's the only thing that makes the quote unquote big day possible, right? So the 660-second video that blew the roof off of Instagram, well, 1 through 661 were a lot more important than that one. You know what I mean? That's like that's the real part of it. You know, because it's, oh man, you know, you work so hard and then that one hit it. Well, you don't know that one is going to hit it. And you think number 15 is going to hit it. And you think 100 is going to, and 200, and 365, and 4, and 500, and 600, and 650, 661, but it's 662. You know what I mean? Like, that's that unknown, like the axe to the gold.
And I guess with that, then it's this concept around expectation, and it's being able to remove your expectation from that journey. And in the sense of remove yourself from the expectations of outcomes, because when you do that, you're guaranteed to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And if you want to have this journey of greatness, but try and enjoy it somewhat along the way, you need to remove those expectations of the outcomes that you want to achieve, because a lot of the time they're not in your control. You can control the output, and you need to hope that the outcomes are received. I mean, the output is received well, so then we get a good outcome.
Yeah.
But you can't expect that. It's the same as what you think and you feel I might not agree with. It's like, I will do an ice bath every day.
Yeah.
But if I miss one, I'm not fazed. If I go out on a retreat for a week and I can't post, or I could, but I didn't make enough time to schedule all the posts.
Yep.
Like I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But I also respect someone that's going, no, I'm going to go to the end of the earth to make sure that I'm doing this. And I respect that.
And I want to speak on that as well, because I think running, like that's the main, you know, we'll call it a streak. I feel like it's a bit more than that for me, but the running every day, no matter what, I think makes the most sense, because I don't know where in the world I'm going to go where there's not a stretch of a mile that I can run. Now, the ice bath, that is not always reasonable. Like that's actually not a reasonable one. So what I won't do is allow the ice bath streak to get in the way of an opportunity that would be much better than that day's ice bath, but doesn't allow for it. Right? So if I'm going to go travel to some place and it's the best opportunity and meet this person, that person, do this thing, and there's no ice bath, that one's going to have to go.
A cold shower it is.
Cold shower it is, 100%. I haven't gotten to that point yet. You know, I keep things pretty simple in terms of lifestyle, but that would be something where I would actually draw the line. That's hard for a person like me, because I want to say, well, you know, I don't care where the heck I am. I can find some ice and fill up a bucket of water. I mean, you know, there's a practical silliness to that at some point. Maybe I'll do another difficult thing. The run one seems very, very approachable, and it's really hard to find an excuse for that one. An ice bath is like, some places don't have those, like every quarter mile in Austin, Texas, I guess there is one, but that's not always the case for other places in the world. So I do actually remain, I won't say flexible, but I remain reasonable as best as I can with that sort of thing, while still being a little bit crazy. Got to hold on to it a bit.
Yeah. And I guess just as we wrap up the show, I want to ask you a bit more of a vulnerable question about where you are now in your life. Like, you've obviously done so many things to get you to where you are, and discipline's a bit of a fluff word.
Yep.
I know there's so many other things that actually hold more weight, I feel. But you're clearly a disciplined person where you're holding those commitments to yourself, and probably I would say that you're more on the extreme side with a lot of the things that you do, which is, again, fine, because we can respect that, right?
Yeah.
But in your life now, what would you say your biggest challenge would be?
I would say it's a great question. I mean, I think more so than ever, I'm in tune with the meaning behind what I do, the purpose behind what I do. And I feel like there's a very strong depth to that. And a lot of things are going well because of that. Having that be paired with things like, well, I still run a business. I literally tell people this when I'm on a call with them, like a discovery call, for them to work with me, to do coaching. I'm like, I don't like the business behind what I'm doing. I know this is like hey, it sounds like I'm trying to sell you thing. I don't like this. It just happens to be that there's such a high volume of people reaching out, and I'll work with like 4. You know what I mean? And I hate to think about money. I hate to think about like stupid things that I know don't matter, but is like, it actually does matter. Like, it matters to make a good living. It matters to have organization and ambition around the financial side of things. But it sucks. Like, it taints the thing that actually matters, and navigating that is actually pretty difficult, right? And then I would say one of my biggest goals in my life is to have my own family. And that's a tough thing, I mean, imagine being the unsatisfying person and the one that contrasts everybody, but you want to build a relationship. You want to find that significant other. You want to find the person that you do belong with and build all those kinds of things. That's difficult as well, but that's something that I will not settle, right? Because a lot of people, I would say most people, will not accept nothing in the moment. They need something now, right? I will sacrifice right now. I will have nothing in the current moment to have everything I've ever wanted eventually. And that's a patience thing. But it's also a recognition of, well, if somebody has someone, right, that they have the best relationship and the best understanding and the most opportunity out of that relationship, if someone has that, I ought to. You know what I mean? And that's something that I motivate myself with, because, I think I'm all right, but am I the only person that's just like me? No. Do I want someone that's just like me? No. There are people who understand the way that I think, right? There's going to be a great young woman out there that can be complementary to who I am. You know what I mean? And that's a goal of mine, because a relationship of that extent is like the coolest thing ever. Right? People like, date somebody and then get married and they're like, here we go. We're good to go. We did it. And it's obviously the start. That's the starting line. But the opportunity that can come out of that, right? The team effort, right? Like doing life together, all that kind of thing. I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing ever, right? So much can come out of that kind of relationship, building a family off of that. Dude, that's like the most exciting idea ever. Like, people get very cheap with the whole relationship thing. It's like, I don't want a girlfriend right now. What a burden. I'm like, are you kidding me? To have somebody that wants to be a part of your life and sees the same vision and is supportive and, is completely different in some ways and has this amazing complementary situation. How could it be better than that? That's awesome. So I would say that's a challenge. You know what I mean? Finding that, but it's like the coolest thing ever. It's pretty motivating.
It's one of those things, hey, like it is a challenge finding that, but the problem is like you can't really find it, because when you're searching for it, that's when you never find it.
Never.
And it's just this constant battle. I know what you're saying there. I know what you're saying there. And I guess from your point, trying to find someone that will be complementary to your extremes, and maybe not someone that is, the person that is complementary to that probably isn't someone that is really extreme.
Exactly.
Like it's, for me anyway, it's like that's someone that can just be calm and can calm me down, and like that's a different aspect of my life. I think making sure it's values aligned, but even just tying it straight back into what you said at the start of the show around feeling lonely at school, and obviously it's not the absence of people. Like loneliness is not the absence of people, it's the absence of connection. And I honestly think that connection is the key to our emotional well-being and happiness. And when we can have connection both platonically, but more importantly romantically, when you've got this person that's your best friend, that's your soulmate, it's just your person. Like it really does help with that well-beingness, because you've got that person there with you. And I mean, finding that one's hard, but the ultimate failure is never trying at all, because if it's the key to your emotional well-being and happiness, having these deep connections and relationships, you're willing to take risks in every other area of your life. But then when it comes to the most important decision of your life, the mother to your children, you shy off. If something feels right and it's ticking all the boxes, see where it can go. And if it fucks up and it doesn't work, at least you've learned, you sharpen the sword. But finding it's always the challenge, right?
100%. I mean, finding that person that it works with, but they're not you. That's where it's at. I spent enough time with me, you know what I mean? And I love what you said there. It makes a lot of sense to me.
I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Absolutely. This was a good time. We'll do it again.
We'll have to do it again.
Heck yeah.
Thank you so much, dude. I just want to commend you. It's so cool. I'm inspired by people that are different, because too many people are the same doing all this shit. Spoke to you before. It's like, I want someone that's unique. I want someone that's got their own opinions, their own insights. They actually think. You can tell that you've done the work, and I respect that. So you're going to do amazing things and keep on crushing it, my man.
Look, I appreciate the heck out of it. I think what most people want is understanding, and to get the opportunity for real conversation, right? A search to actually understand and see from the other person's perspective. That's always the best gift to me, genuinely. So I enjoy this, whether the mic is in front or not. It really means a lot, right? And I think when you think a lot, it's hard to find people that match that and want to hear about it. And so this has been a great time, seriously.
It's been awesome, dude.
Awesome.
I am pumped. This was
Okay.
great. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have made it to the end, I'm going to leave all of Cru's details in the show notes and the description below. Go and check him out and give him a follow and check out his stuff. It is amazing. And if you've made it to the end and you enjoyed the show, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. It helps the show grow and helps us get amazing people just like Cru back on the show so we can keep on growing together. I am signing out for this week, but I will see you next week.